Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready, Never Too Old to Get Rich. Before we get going with today's event, I'll take care of some housekeeping, do the land acknowledgement, and tell you a little bit about Work Ready. So if you can hear me and see the slide on the screen, then you're good to go. However, if you're having trouble hearing me or seeing the slide, let me know in the chat and I'll do my best to assist. If you'd like to listen to this presentation on the phone, you can do that by calling 1-669-900-6833 and using the access code 865-7626-2119 and the passcode 123123. You may have noticed that the mics and videos for attendees of the program have been disabled. That's so that everyone can focus on our presenter for the day. Now, that isn't to say that we don't welcome your questions. We surely do. And to get those questions in, put them in the Q&A box. That's the one with the single speech bubble, and we'll incorporate those throughout the Q&A session. If you have comments or Kerry asks you questions during the presentation, respond to those in the chat. That's the one with the two little speech bubbles, and we'll also read those out loud without saying anybody's name, of course. All right. And now it's time for our land acknowledgement. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Kizh, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders, descendants past, present, and emerging as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians Kizh Nation, San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanic.lacounty.gov. All right. And now I'd like to quickly tell you about the Work Ready program before we get going with today's presentation. Work Ready started in December of 2020 with the library providing laptops and hotspots out of 20 and then now 27 library locations and presenting virtual events on a range of work-related topics about how to about a variety of topics that are located on our YouTube channel. So we have done over 100 events at this point, all to help people get a job, improve the work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. I'm going to post a link to the work and career playlist so that if you'd like to take a look at our past programs or share them with anybody you feel would be interested, the link is there. The Work Ready program is made possible due to funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. And I also want to share with you our next event. It's going to be on January 7th, the beginning of 2025, and it's going to be appropriately called Work Ready New Year, New Career. Whether you're experiencing burnout, feeling stuck, or just ready for a change, this workshop is for you. Join career coach Jennifer Rizzotti to explore the 6 steps to pivot, change course, or return to work after a gap. And that's a free program, of course, just like all of our other programs. And if you're interested in more LA County Library programs, you can go to our website at lacountylibrary.org. On the top right-hand side, hover your mouse or over the events button, you get a little drop down that says virtual programming. That'll give you all of our virtual programs, just like this one. And if you're interested in our in-person programs, you can click on that events button. That'll give you our full calendar of in-person programs out of our 85 library locations for all ages and, of course, all free. All right, now the time has come to introduce our speaker for the day. Kerry Hannon is a workplace futurist and strategist on career transitions, entrepreneurship, personal finance, and retirement. She's a frequent TV, radio, and podcast commentator and is a sought-after keynote speaker. Kerry's currently a senior columnist for Yahoo Finance and an on-air expert. She was formerly an expert columnist, opinion writer, and regular contributor to the New York Times, MarketWatch, Forbes, and a personal finance and entrepreneurship expert on the PBS website nextavenue.org. Kerry's a best-selling author and award-winning author of 14 books. These include Great Pajama Jobs, Your Complete Guide to Working from Home, Never Too Old to Get Rich, the name of this program, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Starting a Business Midlife, and her latest book is In Control at 50 Plus, How to Succeed in the New World of Work. Kerry has dedicated her work to making a difference in people's lives, to give them confidence and tools to succeed personally, professionally, and financially. She offers her audiences and readers can-do expert advice on the best ways to empower themselves now and for the future. Kerry graduated from Shadyside Academy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where she serves on the Board of Visitors. She received a bachelor's degree from Duke University, where she's currently a member of an editorial board. Kerry lives in Washington, D.C., with her husband, documentary producer and editor Cliff Hackle, and her Labrador Retriever, Elmore, Ellie. Kerry, the stage is yours.
That's the best part of the fun is the dog, you know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, well, it's fantastic to be here. Thank you for the kind invitation. It's always a pleasure. And this is absolutely a topic that's near and dear to my heart. I ran my own business for 20 odd years as an entrepreneur, so I understand what that's all about. But I also grew up in a family where my dad was super entrepreneurial and he had his own business. So I got to see it at the dinner table every night and talk about it. So it's something that I'm really fascinated by. But before we get started here, it would be really fun, I think, to just take a little temperature of the room here. And I'd like to ask everyone here to kind of let us know. There's 2 questions. The first question I'm going to ask you to just put it in chat, whatever it comes to mind. But why are you here? What brought you to this discussion about never too old to get rich and being an entrepreneur? I'd love to know that. And if you could just pop it into chat, that would be great.
So I'm going to read a few of the responses, Kerry. So somebody mentioned curiosity and interest, planning for next step after retirement.
Mm.
Another person wants to make money and stay busy. The answers are starting to pick up, come in quickly here. So we've got somebody's already an entrepreneur and want to learn new ideas they may pick up, looking for an alternate perspective. It's something I've considered to rely on a corporation for my job. I guess as an alternative to providing a corporate job. I feel too old to get hired or start retirement at 66. Let's see, teacher burnout, yeah, additional income, to take career as a self-employed TV writer to the next level. Yeah, we're getting a lot of great responses here. Somebody's recently retired. Another curiosity. generate more income. So we're starting to get themes here. So some people are somewhere along the way. Some people are just kind of at the precipice here. They've just retired and are wondering what to do next, looking for new opportunities, don't want to put all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're
So
definitely, you're all in the right place because this is a sort of community discussion and knocking around ideas because that's what I love that word curiosity because that's what this is all about. That's what gets us to that next level. But I had a second question that just shouldn't take too long, but give yourself a minute here, and I'd love to know, what's holding you back? Like why haven't you started yet? So what do we need to kind of get through to get you to that next stage where you say, okay, I'm ready to get going, but this is what's been holding me back. And it might be that you're still working full time and you're like we heard in one of the comments, you're looking for your what's next and wisely you're starting to think about it right now because I always advise people, it takes to make a transition to starting either whether it's just a career transition or starting your own business, you've got a 3-year transition period before you're really going to see revenue from what you're doing. And you've got to lay that groundwork early. And sometimes if you can start it as a side gig before you leave your primary employer, if that's what you're looking for, a second act in that way, is kind of a neat way to do it, but not always simple. So let me hear some of those responses of what's holding you back.
we've got a few responses here, and they're starting to, again, also starting to come in quickly. So the very first one, risk aversion. And I mean, it's true. Starting a whole new thing, unexplored territory can be risky. Somebody else is working full time. Um, the uncertainty about the economy with the new presidency, diffidence, which is a great word. Um, it means shyness, um, maybe some lack of basic how-to knowledge, anxiety, another fear of the unknown, fear of failure. I mean, it's hard to decide finally to leave one's job to start, to jump into something where you're not sure if it's going to be a success. Somebody says, I'm lost about how to move forward. Lots of questions, not enough answers.
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah.
has one foot in one business, and then needs to be more secure before taking that foot out. We are new immigrants, so we haven't started our own business yet. Let's see, super involved in work before retirement. Now I have enough energy. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's something that's a positive. That's not holding you back. That's the opposite of being held back there. Somebody said cold calling is hard for me. So there's specific elements of what their next sort of career path would be. Some specific elements are hard.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Difficulty with new tools and learning new software, fear of lawsuits and tax issues, time and money. I think time and money is a good one to end on. I think
I
I
think
would say
so. I
risk,
think
time, and
so.
money are the ones that come up the most.
I know, and here's the thing, it is risky, but here's what I found, just to sort of step back briefly is that we all kind of came through that period of the pandemic, which was really scary. And at the time, especially the early days, and nobody really knew what was going on or what was likely to be down the road. And we all had an opportunity to do that soul searching and kind of spend some time thinking about it, how we want to spend our days. And and this was at all ages, but certainly people at midlife or over 50, my peeps as I call them, it was really a time to sort of come to a place of honesty with yourself about what really matters and what turns you on, what lights you up, what's going to make your life rewarding. So this book that I had written prior to that, Never Too Old to Get Rich, and I used the word rich kind of in a fun way because yeah, I want everyone to succeed financially, but it's also having a rich life and having a rewarding life. And I firmly believe that when you are your own boss, you have the things that we all want out of our working lives in many ways. We have autonomy to, you know, have that flexibility to do the kind of work we want to do and actually to set our hours in many ways. So when I looked at coming out of the pandemic, how the workplace had changed, there were five major trends I saw. And many of you now, you'll think, well, yeah, of course. But at the time, they were pretty revolutionary. And the first one was, of course, remote work just shot out. It had been around, of course, but it really became a platform for working that was essential. And even though many corporate America want people to come back into the office, it's really a time of having this opportunity to the genie's out of the bottle. We figured it out. Virtually, you can work in so many different situations now. And that was a big trend. Contract work was huge, and that really exploded. Again, back to flexibility, but trying out new things. You could have your employer could be anywhere globally. The next thing that came out of it was this idea of entrepreneurship. And being your own boss. Career transition was the other one, people shifting to do something completely different. And this matters to this discussion today because all of these things are interrelated. So when we talk about being our own boss, being an entrepreneur, starting our own business, there's all kinds of ways to slice and dice that, right? So we've got, you could be a consultant, you could be a freelancer, you could be a contractor, you could start a bricks and mortar business. A man I know in New Jersey, he collected toys. Like it was like something he loved his whole life was collecting vintage toys. Well, after he came out of the pandemic, he had a landscaping business, and he was approaching 60, and he said, you know what, my body doesn't want to do this anymore. I want to keep working. His wife is several years younger than him, and he just said, I'm not done yet. But what he did is they put their heads together, they started doing research, and he opened a toy store in a little town in New Jersey. So, I mean, it's kind of fun. It's a dream. It's tough, and he's just getting going. It's not breaking even yet. But again, it's allowing yourself permission to have these dreams. And I think that's super exciting about entrepreneurship. But so, and it's not for everyone. I'm going to be very clear. It can be risky and for many reasons, but we'll hit on a few of those now. But it's increasingly common. And that the statistics show that entrepreneurs who start businesses over the age of 50 are more successful than workers who start businesses at the age of 30. And there's lots of reasons why this is true. Some of the core ones, of course, are you're coming to this with management experience, perhaps, with marketing experience, with a feel for financial things through your years of the experience that you've honed over all these years. And you have a network. You probably really understand your industry if you're not shifting to a completely different field. So you have these quivers, your arrows in your quiver, so to speak, that you really have these tools that make it possible to make these changes. But back to what I said, you're going to own this, whatever you're going to do. But these are the big questions that you have to do that reflection period before you launch. There are people who are leapers who are just going to go, boom, I'm going to go do this. I got an idea. But for most people, it's not doing it that way. It's taking time to really figure this out. And so the big questions you need to ask yourself at this stage are why me? Why now? And why this product or this service? What makes it possible? All three of these things you need to be pretty clear on all three of those questions about what it is. Yes, you could have this, burning desire to do something, or you've always known you wanted to do this. But again, I think it's really sitting down and taking that. It's kind of like your ultimate why, of your inner why. So what I like about it is a couple of things. We talked about the variations on the theme, so to speak, and I think one of the things we're all looking for is a work-life balance. So the kind of businesses you might want to start could be just micro businesses. They could be, something quite small. It can be a virtual business that you don't have any kind of bricks and mortars at all, and you're doing consulting, contracting, that kind of work, which is it's entrepreneurship. It's doing your own thing. You're out there doing all that sort of stuff, but you're repackaging skills that you've honed over your career. So it's not reinventing yourself, but it's actually kind of rethinking how you're going to take those skills and put them into a new direction. And I mentioned at the top that often it's nice to be able to start something new as a side gig, because then, as that one comment was, all your eggs aren't in one basket. You can give it time to play out, to test things a little bit, to go to do experiments, try some different things, what might work for you. And you can have hobby businesses, things that have come out of a hobby. So a couple of businesses, as I said, the scope is just so exciting. Like, I love meeting entrepreneurs in this age because it's the variety is, I've met women who started bike shops, and, people who have started selling their jewelry online and done very well with that. There have been people who are selling nuts. Opera nuts is this woman, she she must be close to 80, but she's in New York City. She won't tell me her age, but she had a big career in the fashion industry, and then she stepped away, and she always made these nuts to take to the opera with her bag. Well, she started making them, and she has this great online business called Opera Nuts. And she's doing quite well, and she's partnered with younger people. I think intergenerational connections are a big theme that I'm seeing out there. I have a woman who, she stepped away from her primary career, and she's a single mom, but she started a business with her daughter called One Hot Cookie in Youngstown, Ohio. And they used to make cookies just like for friends and family, and then they slowly expanded it, and they ended up, starting a business together. And now they have standalone stores. They also have a thriving online business. This didn't happen overnight. This is things that, evolved over time. So I think there are a lot of fun ones. There are a couple I wanted to remember to mention you. The other one I love, just because I think we get inspired by other people's transitions. There's a woman who, she's a nurse. She was a nurse, and her hobby was carving wood. I mean, she learned it from her grandfather. She absolutely loved doing woodworking. She also had a passion for horses. And I met her because I'm a horse person, and I met her at a horse show. And while she was in her nursing career, she started a little business doing wood carved things for horse people, racks to hang your bridle on for your horse, or trunks to store your gear in. And so she had this thing, and she would come to the horse shows and set up a little tent and sell these things. And she kept her nursing career. And then she gradually moved into just doing the woodworking. And she said she's never been happier. Another woman is a fantastic gardener. That was her hobby. She was a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., super intense job. It was her hobby to get out in the garden and kind of chill out. And when she took an early retirement package, she decided, hey, I'm gonna become a landscape designer, because everyone kept asking her what she was going to do. But Bev is a cautionary tale, because when she stepped out and turned her hobby into entrepreneurial venture for her, she was miserable. And what happened is, she realized fairly quickly that her gardening was her respite. That was her place, her quiet time, where she went to kind of get away from the craziness. But when it became her job, she was so unhappy, because it no longer was that spot for her to go to. And she quickly pivoted to doing something else. Although, I mean, she's still a fabulous gardener, but she realized she wasn't going to be successful as a business owner doing that kind of thing. Another thing, that when people try to do that soul searching about what it is that might help them move forward, I've met several people who, when they look back at their careers, they're like, I just loved mentoring other people. And that inkling, that desire to give back that way often translates into starting your own business as a coach in some way. And there's been some very successful ones I've met for career coaching, retirement coaching, whatever it might be. But it's that need to connect with somebody and really guide them as you did in mentorship during your work. So, I mean, those are a few examples that I think are fairly interesting. But I think what's important is that you need to take a little time. When I look at what are the things that when all the entrepreneurs, and I tell you, I've interviewed and spent time with probably thousands at this point. At one point, US News and World Report, I spent 3 years traveling around the country, meeting people who had done something for 20 or 30 years and shifted to doing something else completely. Most of them were entrepreneurs. And I wrote a book called What's Next? Follow Your Passion and Find Your Dream Job about that experience. And the common thread, I mean, I didn't want to do any of their businesses, to be honest with you, but I absolutely was inspired by these individuals. And there was a common spine. They all had different kinds of ventures and businesses. But there were a couple things that they seemed to all adhere to. And the first thing was that they gave themselves flexible time frames in order to get off the ground. So there were no rash moves. It wasn't the leaper that I mentioned before. These were people that understood that they needed to do the building blocks and they needed to take time to let it play out. They also they did their research. I mean, they really talked to people in their industry that they were interested in going into. They looked to see who else can I talk to? Who else can I learn more about this? The third thing is they often were able to find ways to do the job first. So whether it's starting a business or what have you, but to be volunteer or to moonlight or whatever it might be to kind of get a sense behind the scenes of, is it as dreamy as this new venture seems like it would be, but when you're actually doing it, as Bev in the garden found out, maybe not so much. They also, the fourth thing they did is they added the skills and the certificates they needed in order to move into, whether it's starting a business where you need to have certain qualifications for that, like even with executive coaching, you're going to want to get some background in that in order to be considered someone who can do that. There's many things that you can shift to your own business, but you probably need a certification of some sort, or at least added skills in order to move forward. And the other thing is that they reached out to not only those networks to soak up the knowledge, but also for that support. You didn't need other people to own their dream, but you need people to support you and help you in the sense believe in your dream. And I think that's really important, to surround ourselves with positive people that can help us stay focused, but also confident and see it as an opportunity to go forward. And so, and they also might be there to help them raise capital, which is something I wanted to hit on quickly. The final thing is that they got financially fit. And from what Oleg read my bio, I'm huge on personal finance and being fit financially. And so I'm going to take in order to make a shift to starting your own business, you really need to be lean and mean. When I talk to successful entrepreneurs, or people who wanted to be entrepreneurs, they always say, money was the biggest obstacle. And money, absolutely, if you're in debt, it is a huge dream killer. So I encourage people who have that flexible time frame, like take the time to do a budget. Where can you cut back? Where can, maybe depending on where you are in your life, you can downsize your living situation so that you're moved to a smaller home or a condo or a different part of the country, even where the cost of living is lower, but paying down some of those credit card debts if you have that. Any of the things you can do that gives you that financial stability in order to be able to move forward, starting your business. And I will say, and it's part of, I have this Kerry's fitness plan, which is 3 pieces. It's only 3 things, but it works for almost everything in life. But definitely, if you're thinking of being an entrepreneur. So the first thing I just told you, financial fitness, you need to get financially fit. Number 2 is you should get physically fit. And I'm not saying, running fast miles or bench pressing huge amounts of stuff. It's getting a sense of, building exercise 20 minutes a day of doing something. I walk my dog a couple of miles a day, but she's a yellow lab and she absolutely needs it. And so do I. So in eating with an eye to nutrition, you're like, what does this have to do with starting a business? It really has a lot to do with it, because when you are physically fit, when you have and when you're eating healthy and you have that sort of vibe about you. And at this age, if most of you are over 50, this is huge in pushing back on ageism, because people don't know what it is about you, but they want to be on your team. They want to work for you, whatever it might be. They want you to be someone that they team up with on different projects, because you have this positive vibe, this can-do attitude that comes from being physically fit. And I swear by it. I mean, people will come up to me after speaking engagements and say, should I dye my hair? Should I get Botox? And I'm like, oh my goodness, if that's what you want to do, absolutely. If it makes you feel better about yourself. But the number one thing you can do to feel better about yourself and really energize your outlook and push back on ageism is to get physically fit. And the third piece of it is spiritual fitness. And again, I'm not talking about a religious practice here, although that's perfectly great, obviously. But I'm talking about having a place. It's super stressful if you're thinking of launching into a new direction, starting your own business, being your own boss, all of that stuff. You need a place where you can take a breath. And so when I think of this spiritual fitness piece, it's yoga or Tai Chi or a mindfulness meditation practice. For me, I actually get a lot of that just out walking my dog, but it's a place that's all yours, that you can just quiet things down and center yourself, because that's an important ingredient to be able to move forward. The next piece I want to get into, because we're going to open this up and shortly for questions and interaction, but I want to talk just for a minute about two more areas. The first one is the things that you need to do if you're really interested in starting a business, is you need to do that business plan. You need an executive summary about what that business is going to be, the location, what your staffing needs, who your customer is going to be, and how much startup you might need to get going. I think people often say, well, okay, great. Well, how am I going to find financing? Well, most of the entrepreneurs I speak to have self-financed their businesses. So that's where that financial fitness piece is key. It's often personal savings that is their Kickstarter, or friends and family. I have a gentleman who started a bookstore in our age cohort, and he was able to get a loan from his brothers and sister at a low interest rate. And they had a formal agreement written up, but it was better than going to the bank and trying to deal with all of that. So friends and family, I mean, obviously banks, you can get loans. The Small Business Administration has SBA loans, that kind of thing. Here's what I don't want you. Oh, and the other one that often in really early stages, GoFundMe or a Kickstarter campaign, any crowdfunding. It helps you build customers. Someone wants to help you build your dream. You can have a little giveaway for them if you want to, but it builds your customer base right there. It's kind of fun. But one thing I'd really encourage you to stay away from is dipping into your credit cards or your retirement funds in order to launch a business at this stage of life. I think it's really problematic and it's so tempting. But if you can avoid doing that, I would encourage it. I have a woman that I just talked to for a new book I'm working on, and she retired from the military. And so she has a military pension, not huge, but she had worked after she retired for defense contractors. And so she had built up some retirement savings there. But she has spent, in the years since she launched her business, which was about 5 years ago in Cleveland, Ohio, it's like a wine cafe kind of thing. She's drained her whole, and she did have to go through the pandemic, mind you, but she has tapped out all of those retirement savings. And so I talked to her, I said, well, what's your plan? She just turned 60. And she said, well, Kerry, my business is my retirement plan. So she's already thinking about how can she sell it in a couple of years and get her capital out. So just some things to get your brain kind of whirling there on different things. And I want to circle back just briefly, and then we can open this up to this idea of how those pillars I mentioned, the themes that came out of the pandemic. And the beautiful thing about starting a business, many businesses today, is it doesn't cost what it used to actually have bricks and mortar. As I said, you might want to do that. Most of businesses we can start from our computers, right? You can have all kinds of different ways that we work virtually. And you don't, so that you don't have that cost of having that space, that building, that real estate. But you also don't need to have a staff necessarily that's full time, that's somebody that you're responsible on a regular basis. Because of the upsurge in contract positions, you can hire somebody to helicopter in once or twice a month to do your bookkeeping for you, to do your social media for you, to help you build your website, to do your marketing. All of those different jobs can be delegated out because entrepreneurs often, this is our child, and we think we have to do all those jobs, but we don't. And because of the wonderful platform for contract workers out there, it's really a great opportunity to build in that layer of support of other people working with you without that huge expense up front. So I think that's been super rewarding for entrepreneurs I've talked to, especially coming out of the pandemic, because it gives you a little bit of financial freedom there in order to pick and choose what you want to do. And the final thing I'll say is someone mentioned in the opening about, kind of being shy and and uh and that sort of thing. Well, here's what happens when you're an entrepreneur. Even if you've given somebody else the duties to help do your marketing for you in some ways, you are still the business. You are the mirror. You mirror your business, and you need to be able to tell people what it is you do, what your dream is, what makes your business unique. And so you do have to do that song and dance, and you do have to have that ridiculously, short elevator speech prepared to tell people what it is. You need to have your mission statement. People need to have mission statements. It's not just companies that have them. You have to say, why am I doing this? What is the meaning for me? And that's your North Star. That helps you figure out what it is you want to do. Like for me, I have a mission statement that I want to be able to touch people's lives and improve their financial security through their work, through their jobs, and their financial decisions. If I can improve one person's life doing that, I'm doing my job. And it puts the guardrails up for me of the kind of work I'll accept doing. If it's not going to be a project that's going to help somebody, educate them in some way, empower them in some way, I don't do it. But if you can create your own mission statement, my goodness, that helps you give a direction to your business. But one way, if you are shy and you don't like doing this, I love doing this. You take a course, take an acting class, take an improv class, particularly. That's great. Or go to Toastmasters or something. Learn to get comfortable public speaking. Even it's going to be doing what I'm doing with you today is on the computer virtually. It's super helpful to get out and get comfortable speaking, and that improv stuff can be a lot of fun. At community college, you might have someplace in town where you could do that. Those are just some little ideas that kind of help think about, because that's something as an entrepreneur, all these things, you're going to wear a lot of hats, but you don't have to do all of those things if you're smart about it. And that's essentially where I land on that. So I don't know, back to you. Do you want to open it up? Do you have some questions for me I didn't cover in my rat-a-tat-tat?
Sure. Well, I have some, I mean, I have so many thoughts. It's literally, you're talking rat-a-tat-tat. I have like popcorn thoughts coming up based on a bunch of things that you've said. So I'm going to also remind the folks out there that if you have questions, please do put them in the Q&A because I really want to incorporate them because the program is, of course, for you and Carrie's here for you. So I always have questions. So I'm going to ask a question that I was thinking about. You talked about finding people and community. So the perception of startups is typically that it's full of young people. How do you find a community for older entrepreneurs, or as you mentioned, like intergenerational uh, entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think we're seeing an increasing focus on these kinds of groups coming together. Um, there's a virtual group called Get Set Up that is online. It's more an educational tool,
Mm.
but it's community based. They offer different skills you might want to learn if you're starting your business, but you also meet other people who are going through these areas. there's a group, and this is a little more high end, but the Modern Elder Academy, MEA, which has a campus in Santa Fe. They have virtual programming, and they have one in Baja. It's a lot of people midlife coming together who are seeking support and connections with other people at that same level and making these pivots and making these turns. And it's a great sense of community building. And everyone's there. There's usually somebody, an instructor of some sort, but it's all about everybody helping each other. And the other thing I didn't mention, and I think is really important to sort of drop in here, is, and again, in each of the different communities, you're going to find that the Small Business Association has economic development centers in many parts of the country. So they often have built-in groups. So the SBA is a great resource in that area with their regional things. But SCORE, SCORE.org, is part of the SBA. It's part of a nonprofit arm. It's free help. So you get somebody who's an experienced entrepreneur or business person who can really talk through your idea with you. They're an excellent organization. It's hit or miss. You might meet somebody there that's not going to be a great fit for you, but I encourage people to check it out. AARP has a great small business part on their website that also encourages, AARP Foundation has work for yourself. That's another part of their thing. So what I'm saying is there's an increasing number of these online big organizations are offering some of these like the ones I just mentioned, but look within your community as well. And even if there's a college or university nearby, there's often in the business school in particular, there's entrepreneurship things bubbling up. And this intergenerational pairing, which I mentioned briefly, is so important. I like that. I think you might get spur from, ideas there as well. There's hubs and that kind of thing.
Like I'm thinking about two particular local kind of organizations or places. So there's oftentimes like what do they call them? WeWork, those kind of remote working locations where you pay some kind of nominal fee and you work in a place with other people. And those places often will have meetups. So you can find, and that's a good intergenerational space. And then also chambers of commerce, local
I love
chambers of
the chamber
commerce.
of commerce. Good
I mean,
idea.
for some people you have to be a member, but they'll often also have mixers.
And even the Rotary, like a local
Yes, the
Rotary.
Rotary.
Yeah.
Some of those clubs are very, very active.
And the
Um,
other thing is go back to your alumni groups. I mean,
mhm.
sometimes your university or your college alumni or high school has career centers there, and they have programming, but they also have community events.
So then, this is a question that's focuses on kind of the risk that people are talking about at the very beginning. You talked about give some examples of people starting their kind of hobby businesses. What are some ways to think about whether to take the leap into making that hobby full time?
I think what I love about it is it's a heart job, right? So there's a lot of joy in doing that. And I think studies have shown that people who start their businesses from a hobby don't take off like, a rabbit, right? They're slow developing businesses, but it's like the tortoise and the hare. They end up being quite successful if you stay the course. And here's why. If you're starting a hobby business, you already know your customers. You've already seen a gap that you might be able to fill with whatever it is, the service or the product that you have in mind. Because you intimately know this industry, you know this hobby, even though it's a hobby. I have always encouraged people not to ruin their hobby, like my friend Bev almost did. But the fact is, some of these are really, really can be successful. And you're working in something, doing something that you absolutely love, and you already have that customer base, you know it. And so you're less likely to hit the gas too fast because you don't want to wreck those relationships in that business, in
Mhm.
that area either. So I think it can be a very prudent approach if you really think it through.
So
And
we have,
again,
yeah.
perfect for a side gig. That's something that's perfect to start spinning off on the side, right?
So yeah, I mean, testing it out,
Yeah.
testing it out as a business.
Yeah, I
S-
think it's important to do those experiments because not everyone is going to work. I mean, you can find out pretty quickly if it's not going to work for you. It's not, you get a gut sense almost, before you realize it that you're, no, okay, I'm going to try another avenue.
So don't be a leaper, like you mentioned this at the
I,
beginning. Don't
I know
just
I'm not hardwired to be one, so I caution people. It doesn't mean it doesn't work.
don't give everything up if you're not sure.
Baby steps, baby steps.
You mentioned a three, I mean, you mentioned a 3-year transition at the beginning.
Yeah.
It really going fast may not be, it feels like, I got this, I got to leave something, or like I need something to do now. But transitioning to it may mitigate some of the risk, or at least give you a sense of what the risks might be.
And the thing is, if you too, when we talk about contract positions and the uptick in remote job opportunities, this is a great time to try out some different things that you might want to make your full-time gig, right? You dip your toe
Mhm.
in and you to get a consulting project doing something or working as a project manager on something that you're interested in. It could grow into a business area for you, but you want to just, tease it out a little bit. And that's a really nice way to kind of keep the cash flow, to keep making money, to bringing stuff in while you're working on building your business on the side. But you're also keeping your resume alive by taking on those remote, flexible opportunities in case you do end up stepping back into a full-time gig in some way. Who knows? You might not, but it enables you to keep going. And even if these are volunteer, doing something you might grow into a business as a volunteer is another interesting another way to go at it, whether it's grant writing or fundraising, or it can be all kinds of different things in that sphere. But you could use those skills as a volunteer for a nonprofit and say, hey, I really am enjoying this. Plus, you're building your network. Each of the times you do those little steps, you're meeting new people that are going to give you new ideas and help you, sort of sort through all these decisions and ideas.
And we just had a program on fundraising, a panel a little while ago. And I think one of the ways to move into freelance is to do the volunteer bit to get yourself experience, but also, yeah, like you said, make the network, make the connection, because you volunteer to write a grant for an organization, maybe another one, and then eventually somebody will say, hey, like, can you do this for us for money? We really need you at this time. If you're a volunteer, you can be like, I'm not available. But if they really want you to do it, then they'll pay you for it.
Of course they will. And then once you've shown that you can do it, you have something to prove that that you can go up that alley. And I just think it's always good. And that's the beauty of the age that we're at, is there's a lot of different things we can do. And I like to encourage people, yeah, own this. This is your time. I mean, this is your chance to be, what it is and it's precious. So, and you can make mistakes, and it's not going to, your business could take off like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so much demand, but then it slows down. So it's not, that's why the financial stability as your underbase, if possible, makes it so much easier to kind of weather the ups and downs and even that's a whole other subject, is getting people to pay you.
Well, yeah, it's every freelancer's challenge. So I want to take a little swerve because we had a question all the way at the beginning, and I don't know if you have any specific recommendations for this, but I'm going to ask and then we can figure it out. How can I set up a free website for my business?
A free website, meaning what free? Like,
So I think that they're looking for maybe a platform or a website where you can create a free website. I know there used to be some a while ago, and I know Google Sites used to exist. It's just a website where you can create a free page. Um,
yeah.
so
Well, for my website, I have my own website, but I did hire somebody. It wasn't super expensive. I think it was like $1,500. I paid her to set up my website for me on GoDaddy.
so
Um,
that's the hosting service.
yeah, and Network Solutions, I think, is who I bought
Mhm.
my Kerry Hannon.com
Yeah,
from.
so you buy the domain at
Yeah.
kerryhannon.com, and then you use a host
Yeah,
um,
and
to
but
store the
it's so
files.
simple with WordPress that I manage it all myself. I don't ever need her for anything.
Mhm.
I know it's very user friendly, and there are other formats as well. That's just the one I'm familiar with. But so it is possible you might have a
Mm,
one-time expense to have somebody, and it could be, and it's somebody who's a virtual contract worker
mm,
helping get it started. And then it's pretty it's pretty easy logically to figure out how to manage it yourself.
mhm. And we had a few comments in the chat also. Somebody's mentioned that Wix, Wix, is a
Mhm.
possible site for.
Yeah.
I know they have a pay. You can make a paid service. I mean, they're a paid service, but you could they may also have a free one available. And then you mentioned Carrie WordPress, which is a blogging platform.
I
You can,
actually think in my book, I know I actually don't have it in front of me, but that Never Too Old to Get Rich book, I have a list of that, particularly those sites, and I can send it to you if you want to post it for everybody, the ones that I
sure.
have.
Yeah,
But Wix,
if you send it
Wix
to
I
me,
know is one of them. Yeah, I'll
if you
send it
send it
to
to
you.
me, then I'll put in the follow-up email. And I'll look
Yeah,
for some other ones because I know there are some, and if it's free, there are limitations, but they are out there. And also, of course, you can create a social media page. And a few people mentioned Facebook business pages. Those are
yeah.
free.
I think Facebook is excellent for that. And LinkedIn, you should have a presence. It's really important, I think, in many fields, not all of them, but for white collar jobs and that sort of thing, to be on LinkedIn. You talk about building a community. That's a place that you can really seek out experts to help you, knowledge experts in the fields you're interested in starting in. You can even follow them. You don't have to link in with them. You can just follow them and learn from them. Elisa Cohen, there's some really good entrepreneur coaches out there that are on LinkedIn that I track, like Dory Clark. There's a few good ones that there are many of them actually, but that can inspire you. And also, they're good people too. I think they have books out as well. But I do think social media, Facebook is great for it for sure. And Instagram, it depends on what you're doing. If
Yeah,
Instagram can be wonderful, and I've moved over to Blue Sky, so I'm just learning about Blue Sky, but there
yeah.
could be opportunities there.
A Blue Sky is like a Twitter or an X alternative where it's, a micro blogging service.
Yeah.
Yeah, if your business requires or benefits from the visual, Instagram, because it's images.
Yeah.
So I want to move towards kind of an educational perspective here. I know somebody mentioned in the chat, Ed2Go is a program where you can take courses to build skills and get certifications, as well as offer to teach online courses in your area of expertise. And the reason I bring that up is because the library actually offers Ed2Go, which is now also which is called Gale Courses now. We offer it for free. So if you're interested in learning bookkeeping or various other web design, um, I actually took a web design course through Gale Courses years ago, and when I was doing freelance web consulting or did a computer consulting, and I built a whole content management system for clients just based on that course that I took. But so I want to say I'm going to post a link to all libraries' educational resources in the follow-up email. But somebody in the Q&A asked about Toastmasters. Um,
I
can
love
you speak
to.
more about Toastmasters, how to find one with specific topics, etc.?
They're all over the place. So just
Hmm.
do a search and see if they're in your town or near you. And they could have a virtual platform that they use a lot now too. When I did it, it was in person
Hmm.
and in Washington, D.C., but I found it hugely helpful in terms of learning to put together a speaking, talking in front of people I didn't know, and having a time sort of guardrails, those kind of things. But it just pushes you out of your comfort zone. And they've been around for so long, and it's just
Yeah,
a great organization. And I think for anyone who wants to get comfortable, because really, if you're selling when you're an entrepreneur, whether it's freelancing or consulting or running your shop, you are, your own marketing department, and you need to be able to, be able to speak really comfortably with people you don't know.
as a former Toastmaster myself, I give it a big thumbs up. Very helpful. And now I'm on, and as in you, of course, Carrier on TV and everything. I'm merely on Zoom all the time. I mean, I don't think about Toastmasters every time I speak, but I sort of almost pay tribute to Toastmasters every time that I speak publicly since I was part of a club. I mean, it was. it was very important for me.
I think it's
Yeah.
great because, I don't know about you, but I was like super shy. So that's why I became a writer, for gosh sakes. I mean, I didn't have, but getting Toastmasters and all of that opportunity to get out in front of people, it's just so energizing. I absolutely, it's probably my favorite thing to do now.
Mhm. It's I don't know, I had a good time with it. I built leadership skills, I built speaking skills. Toastmasters is great. So
It's easy.
next question, what advice do you have if you don't have the luxury of financial fitness or time? Lost jobs paired with ageism in hiring and long-term unemployment has posed challenges where there really isn't room for just trying something new.
Yeah, no, so true. I think the best thing there is to really, buckle down and try to find work that you can, and I'm a big believer in love your job, but if you can find work that you can just say, this is why I'm doing this. And ageism is huge. It is not, it is definitely, remote jobs are super helpful in this area because you're not being judged by your cover and the way you are when you're in a workplace. But again, I think you might need to find that remote position, that contract position even, and allow yourself the financial, use that to take care of your monthly nut or whatever you need. And while you just quietly start devoting time to what it is you really want to do, because you may have to balance those two demands at the same time. And that's a very real fact of life. But I will say, and just anecdotally, I don't know what the position that the person who sent the question, but on LinkedIn, depending on your work, I mean, I'm really a big believer also in having a great LinkedIn profile if you're looking for work as in all of these entrepreneurial ways, because you just never know. And you have a network of people, you hear of opportunities. But for me, LinkedIn, I was running my own business. And 3 years ago, I think it was about 3 years ago, uh, a recruiter found me on LinkedIn, and here I am today with this Yahoo Finance job. They hired me at the age of 61. Like what? And like a full-time job. It's fully remote. And the reason why they hired me is because they knew I could do the job right that minute. Like they didn't need to train me or any. I had it. So it's been the best thing that ever happened in my career. And amazingly, it's a strange statement to make because I've had a really great career, but it's totally re-energized it at a time in my life when I was getting a bit jaded. And I work with, my editor is like 2 decades younger than me. So, I'm working for a younger manager, which is fantastic. It just has just I see the world in a different lens, and there's great respect. So I'm a big fan of LinkedIn because you just don't know. And plus, they have a great job board.
I remember, Carrie, when you did your first Work Ready program with us, I don't think that you had that position just yet. And then the next one you did, I remember when you got it and how pleased you were when you were talking about the person that this person that you're working with.
Oh, it's so fun. And even, like when I got the offer, I was like, I don't know, I really love being my own boss and running my own business. And I was talking to my sister, my best advisor, and she's like, Carrie, what's going to happen if you don't like it? You quit. It's not going to ruin your career. So it's like, at this point in our age, it's okay, this is our time, right? Just give it a go, whatever it might be. And I've learned to say yes to a lot of things that I think a lot of us start to close down at this age. You need to
Mm.
open up and say, why not? What's the worst thing that can happen?
So I have another kind of swerve to a very specific question here. I'd like to establish an LLC for my new business. Should I use a lawyer or should I do it myself to save money?
Oh boy, yeah, LLC can be a little expensive to set up, but honestly, yes, you can do it yourself. If it was me, I would have a lawyer look at it, even if you did most of the footwork by yourself. I think it's really important to have somebody who's an expert. That's an important thing because it impacts so much of your business and your taxes and your liability, all of that stuff. I think
Mhm.
it's too important to wing it.
Speaking of taxes, do you feel the same way about having an accountant?
Yeah, I do. Especially if you're running your own business, because there can be so many red flags for the IRS that I think it's really important to have somebody um, who can hold your hand a little bit. And you may very well, depending on your situation, have a lot of deductible expenses,
Mhm.
having home office, your marketing expenses. There's many things as an entrepreneur that you can that are legitimate business expenses that you can write off against your income. So I think my accountant's always really held my hand, and my husband's also in a business for himself, and helped us say, no, you can't really write this off, but
Mhm.
you can do this and keep good track. Are you keeping good
Mhm.
paperwork? Are you keeping track of all that? I mean, paper is sort of a word we don't use anymore because it's all stored on our computers, but you
Mhm.
know. But yes, I'm a big fan of that. And again, it doesn't have to be cost you a huge amount of money to do that, but it's just paying attention to the spine of your business. You've got to really make sure you're a professional about it.
Somebody mentioned in the chat that becoming an adjunct at a local college may also help in networking. So that's an
That's a
idea. If you have some kind of skill that you can teach, that's that's
I
not
think
not a bad idea.
that's a great thing to do. My brother-in-law actually retired from his job. He was a lawyer, and he does that at Clemson University in South Carolina, and he teaches business law, and he loves it. And he has this whole new team of people he hangs out with and does all that. And so it took him a while to make that all happen. So it doesn't happen overnight, but I think they're great opportunities to do adjunct. And it's so fun to give back that way too, and to get paid, not a huge amount, but you do get paid.
Yeah. I think this next question is actually kind of for me. Are there any library classes on creating a good LinkedIn profile? And the answer is yes. Yes, yes. We've done several work ready programs on that, and I'll post a link in the follow-up email, give you all the links. And I think even we have LinkedIn Learning. I think on LinkedIn Learning there may be it would make sense if there's a class on creating a good LinkedIn. So the answer is yes.
Yeah, and it's really, and once it's up there, it's so fun because you can go in and play with it anytime you want. I change mine all the time. I put different things up, and it's interactive in a way that your resume doesn't have a chance of being. And it gives people who want to hire you, that you'll be a client for them or what have you, um, a little insight into you. You know, they see your personality in a way that doesn't shine through in a resume. You can, in that about me part, you can really be very conversational, and you can show places where you volunteer, or I mean, they get a fuller picture of who you are. Plus, again, it builds community. But again, it's important. Look at some profiles of people doing work or running businesses like you'd like to do. Just see what they have up there on theirs. It's a really good sleuthing way.
So speaking of LinkedIn, I found a question. I found so many people apply to those jobs on LinkedIn and as an elder, I don't feel like I have a chance at getting a job. I haven't so far after a year.
Yeah, I hear you. It is, here's the thing about job boards. Well, I like job boards in the sense that they give you an idea of the kinds of jobs that out there and the companies that might be hiring. But then you really need to go to that company's website almost and their jobs page. And then also on LinkedIn, you can see who you know who works there. Because the truth of it is employers still hire people they know or people they know, if possible. It's the network that gets you hired. Blindly sending your resume, firing it electronically, even if you've done all those special things to make sure you have the right words, you have all of that stuff,
Mhm.
still shoots you out because you're right. So many people apply to these jobs very quickly, that I use them a lot as a sort of just a guide to what might be up there and to give people a sense of what skills are needed for certain jobs. Like these are the skills required. Oh, do I have those? And then it gives you a sort of a read that way. In my situation, actually, I wasn't looking for a job, so they just reached out to me, the recruiter, and you can check a box on LinkedIn. In fact, I hadn't actually done that even, but they do have where no one has to see it, but recruiters that you're interested in looking for work and that they can contact you. So there's different ways, but you got to have an advocate. I think it's very, very difficult to go in just through the transom.
Yeah, LinkedIn makes it very easy to apply for jobs, and people take advantage of it just clicking all of them. And so that means that these organizations are getting inundated with applications. So it's easy to get lost in that. And having, like you said, having an advocate t brings you above all of those people that are just throwing their names in.
Yeah, and it's hard to, people say, yeah, yeah, but I don't. But one quick story is that, this was a gentleman I know who he had stepped down from his primary career, but he wanted to continue working and teach English as a second language. And he got the certifications requirement to do that, but he couldn't find a job and he lived in New York. So he was at dinner one night and his son was with him and his son's friend. So the son's friend's like, oh, Mr. So-and-so, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm looking for a job as teaching English as a second language. And the kid said, oh, well, you should talk to my mom. Now, this guy never knew the kid's mom. And the kid's mom actually didn't find him the job, but the mom sent him to somebody else and he got a job. So you just never know where that network might come from. And we're talking up LinkedIn, which is a great way to know some of your existing network, but it could be the most unsuspecting way that you'll hear of a job opportunity. And when we're at this age, that's where it's going to come from. Oh, I have another quick one. I know we're almost
Mhm,
out of time. Another quick one. This was about a hobby thing, going to get a job.
mhm.
A guy I met not too long ago, he was laid off from his job. He was in sales. He was 55 or 60. And he couldn't find another job in sales. And he said it was ageism. I believe him. And he's a terrific sailor. So he went down. He just got sick of the rejections, like we just were talking about, and he went down to Longboat Key, Florida, and for 2 or 3 months last spring, he taught sailing, and he's a really great sailor. And one of his guys, some guy who went out with him for that he was teaching how to sail was a CEO of a company in New Jersey. And the guy said, and he told him, this isn't really what I do. I'm looking for a job. He said to this guy, and the guy's like, oh, well, my company, we're looking for a project manager. And he said, you should apply for it. And he goes, I am not a project manager. I've never done that in my whole life. I don't have one certification. And he said, guess what? You just taught me how to sail from A to B over to C. You know exactly how to be a project manager. And we often don't think to what that, and he ended up, he did go and he did get the job. Maybe he already knew the CEO now, but he's been promoted twice. And he said, he got all the certifications, but he said, who thought that he would switch from sales to project management at this age and be loving what he's doing? Because the learning curve ramps up, it's exciting, and so forth. But again, in an unlikely way, but it's connecting the dots where these jobs might come from. Entrepreneurial kind of jobs too. But although he did go in-house, but it is, I love the way he used his hobby to find him a
Mhm.
network.
That's a great story. I remember you told that one in a previous question when you started talking about the salesman who was a sailor. I said, "Oh yeah, I remember that."
And we like him.
That's a great one.
I keep in touch with him because it's just such a
Mhm.
wonderful story.
So we're getting towards the end of our session here, but I did want to ask a question that occurred to me while you were presenting. So you talked about those three items: why me, why now, why this product or service. And this is, of course, important as sort of inward reflection. But what are some steps to do market research to know whether a venture is worthwhile or possible?
Yeah, the best way, honestly, is talking to people. It's
Mhm.
going out and asking, getting that informational sit down with somebody, whether it's virtual or with them, who's doing that, who's doing what it is you're interested in. You're not trying to get them to hire you. You're not trying to get them to invest in your business or your idea. You just want to find out, how did they get started? Where did they see the opportunities in that field? You don't have to give away your secrets or whatever it is, but you can build up a sort of repertoire of sensibility about what's happening in that field that you're interested in. And you don't take any more than 20 minutes of their time. And truthfully, people love to talk about themselves. So chances are they're not going to be, I mean, it's a little tricky to get the time for them, but if you promise, you keep it short, you send them a thank you note, and you always remember to say, who else should I talk to? Because you just keep it going. And to me, I mean, yes, there was places to search online to see what's there. But I think it's really a word of mouth kind of thing. Honestly, I don't know. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean there are ways to do market research on, I mean, library resources, etc., to find out kind of the size of the market, those kind of details that you might want to think about for, like, for a business plan. Are there enough customers? But I think it's true. I think talking to people, both people who are already doing it and also people who are potential future customers. If you start a business, obviously you have, well, I would say obviously, but uh, you should have sort of a target audience, a very specific target audience. So talk to your target audience. And if you don't know your target audience, then how are you going to know them when you're trying to sell the thing or sell the service? So you need to meet members of your target audience and ask them, is this something that you would buy or why or why not?
And it's going to industry functions. If
Mhm,
is there a conference? Is there a trade show? Is there something? And yeah, you often have to pay to get into those, but in your community, there might be free events for these kinds of
mhm,
things, but that's where you're going to get inside and see what's happening on the tray on the floor. They have almost all of them have setups where people have booths and they're demonstrating things, and it's a great way to get people's contact information to have some face to face if can get there. And I do think conferences and industry and belonging, if it's a certain association, join the association
mhm.
and then there are meetings and opportunities to get on committees or what have you.
And those people are most excited about what they're doing because they're doing it even when they're not at work.
Mhm. I think so.
So I don't have any other questions from folks out there, but I do have one last question that I want to ask because I'm curious about this also. And I think that we talked about money and finances and raising money. And you mentioned crowdfunding, you mentioned getting bank loans and then asking friends or family. So when you ask people like friends or family, how do you pitch those people without sounding kind of like, give me your money?
Well,
How do you pitch friends and family?
I think it's tricky, but it doesn't have to be hard.
Mhm,
You have to do that. And again, the Small Business Administration's website has a guide, but do the time to write out that business plan. And it doesn't have to be pages and pages, but if you can get really buttoned down on what your ask is, you need to be able to tell them what it is you're doing and how, all the different pieces of the puzzle and being a business, like it's not emotional. You've got to take the emotion of that relationship out of it and make it business. Show them this is what your goals are. This is who your customers are likely to be, your startup costs you anticipate, what you're going to charge, all of those things that you've already worked out. Then you can make that presentation in a very business-like fashion. And it's not a free, you're not asking them to donate to you.
mhm,
Actually pitch it as an investment that you'll pay them back with an interest. And it doesn't have to be a big interest rate. Like I mentioned, the guy with the bookstore, these are pretty standard agreements. A lot of entrepreneurs do because if you borrow from family, it can get super messy.
mhm,
It can get super messy, especially when the business takes a downturn. So you want to have some things in place. The beauty is that if it does take a downturn, they're a little more forgiving usually that you haven't paid back the X amount on X day, right?
mhm.
But a bank loan isn't quite so forgiving for you. But again, I think you have to approach it uh, as a business person and without the emotion and be prepared for no, because it does make people feel a little uncomfortable. But when I talked before about having, people who believe in your dream and they don't have to want to own your dream, but those are your board of directors. You want to have that board of directors on
Mhm.
your team, and maybe it's not even people that you pay, but you have oh, I love this. I'm sorry, we have to get off now, but another big theme, I see a lot of these little circles, like entrepreneurial. I see these with job seeking circles, people who are looking for work, who create these little communities. They're
Like
like,
job clubs.
yeah. And then you keep
Mhm,
each other accountable. But this happens in the entrepreneurship space too. People
mhm,
put together, cherry pick like 4 or 5 people that not necessarily in your business, but probably not, but are at the same level. And you exchange ideas. You say, this is what I'm working on, and you keep each other accountable, but you
mhm,
also can share resources. So I think that's another way to try to put together an entrepreneur circle that you can
mhm.
lean on.
Thank you very much, Carrie. So to summarize kind of the big themes of what we talked about today is that very important in starting a business, moving. even a side gig into a full-time business is talking to people. That even when we're shy, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, industry conferences, chambers of commerce, sites where you get to learn, super important. Number two is that it's not easy, but it's possible. That people do it all the time, and you mentioned that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but many people find that starting their own business midlife is what they've always wanted to do, and they end up being able to do it. And what I also want to end on is that there are so many resources out there. And Carrie, you mentioned a whole lot of them, the Small Business Administration or SCORE. And I'm going to post a lot of those links into our follow-up email. But yeah, there are a lot of resources of people out there who want to help you start a business, whatever your age is. So thank you so much, Carrie, for providing inspiration and education for our work-ready audiences. And thank you to the people out there for asking your questions and being here with us today. I do want to humbly request that you fill out our post-event survey. I posted a link to that in the chat, and just take a second to fill out. It's only a few questions. Thanks to Carrie. Thanks to all the people out there, and we will see you next time.